Welcome to European Business News, the last in our three-part series about how to improve efficiency and organisational profitability. This time we will look at the role of training. I'm rejoined in the studio today by Dr. Tony Miller, international author of 13 books and the productivity specialist. Welcome back to the programme.
Thank you.
I've been looking at some research on training spend. It's interesting to see, for those who took part, who are the biggest spenders and the smallest, and the country's relationship with productivity. Top of the spending list seems to be the GCC countries in the Middle East. And a surprise for me, one of the lower spenders is China. Why is that? And is that evidence that training doesn't work?
That's a very tricky question to answer because I spend most of my business time either in China or in the Middle East. The two areas are very, very different. The Chinese firmly believe that when you're employed to be able to do the job, and that any training you get will be to enhance your job. Specifically, they're talking about enhancing productivity. Whereas in the Middle East, there's a fundamental belief that you won't be able to do anything unless you're trained. And the whole philosophy is to provide you with a lifetime of training, mainly competency-based training.
So for our viewers, what's the difference between competency-based training and performance-based training?
Well, competency-based training is what most traditional training departments spend their budget on, probably 99%. And competency-based training gives you three things. It gives you quality, conformance to standards, and safety. So competency-based training is widely what training departments do because they feel very comfortable with it. Performance-based training is very, very different. Performance-based training enables you after the training to do more of something or be quicker at something. So it's all about things that will help you to be more performance related.
It strikes me that this leaves everything in the hands of the manager.
Well, certainly for competency-based training, the manager does the training needs analysis. The manager will do the evaluation, and the manager reports back the outcomes of the training at performance appraisal. Performance-based training, very, very different. The training department have to do the training needs analysis, and very often they haven't got the skills to do it for performance-based training. The training department then do all the calculations on evaluation before the training is delivered. And performance-based training, as I've mentioned earlier, is an area where we're looking for a change in results or a change in performance.
So how does performance training differ?
Well, it's just a lot more organised and it's quite pressured. I think if you look at performance-based training courses, they're not popular because you know that when you've done the training course, you have to go and do more, and somebody will be measuring you to make sure it's done.
I thought training was always evaluated after the event too.
Yes, well that's true with competency-based training, but not with performance-based training. Performance-based training will always give you a financial value. So what we're looking at is calculating the return on investment before we actually carry out the training. So all the mathematics are done before the training course is even run. So we know that we're going to get a certain amount of money back from our investment.
Can you give us a sense of what type of training is classed as performance-based?
Well, there are not many. And they're in my book, which would make it very easy to me to refer to if I had it in front of me. But there are only about 13. At the simplest end is probably train the trainer, where you train people to train others who are not in the training department. And then the money you save on the training course would be a return on investment. Teaching people to do business process re-engineering. It's a half-day program, very intense, but at the end, the financial return on investment is astronomically high on that one. So once again, it's always looking at the financials before you do the training.
Have you any advice for training departments on what they should be doing to improve their contributions to their organisations? or for those people who are responsible for training spend?
Well, I think training departments have a duty to demonstrate that they can actually add value. I don't think it's good enough to say, oh, we've spent the training budget, or look how much training we've done. I mean, has any of that really added value to the organisation? Has it added value to the bottom line? And I think the shift has got to be from doing nearly all competency-based training to look at performance-based training, measure the value and be able to say to the business, we've done this training, this is the measurable value that training has delivered for the business.
Can you expand on the point about cost and volume focused?
Okay, well, for competence-based training, all you have to play with is the cost. So if you can do it cheaper, that's well and good, providing the quality, of course, doesn't diminish. Performance-based training, the cost isn't important at all. It's the other side of the equation. How much money are you going to get back? How much money are you going to make? And certainly in my career, there's been times when I've had to make a case for an astronomical amount of money to be spent on a performance-based piece of training, which hasn't been in the budget. But I've been able to get that money because I can prove what the return on investment is going to be. So for performance-based training, the cost is not that important. It's what you get out at the end. So it's focusing on the end of the training.
A very interesting example of performance-based training there. Dr. T, thank you. That brings us to the end of our series in which we've seen in the first programme how right-sizing can transform an organisation. In the second programme, how HR can become a business partner and better contribute to organisational effectiveness. And in this, our final role, the value of training, particularly if it's performance-based. I'd like to thank our guest, productivity guru, Dr. Tony Miller, for his practical advice and help.
Thank you very much.